So thank you everyone for coming. For attending this talk. We have another guest in our midst who's going to be talking to us about climbing the ladder of success, the story of a data scientist. And the guest that we have uh, is a recognized and a seasoned data scientist, and presently a data science manager Lois UK. He's he has worked in different roles as a senior data scientist, leadership role, and including Deloitte and MCOPA and the like. So I'll give it to him so that he will give more introduction about himself. And I believe you're going to enjoy his talk because he's with wealth of experience that you cannot just do that you gain a lot from what he's going to tell you today. So over to you, David.
Thank you, Sharif. First and foremost, thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I really feel very honored to be here. I don't know whether we've actually discussed the story of how you and I started collaborating on a project together. And I think it was one of the most interesting projects I worked, in the UK. You are such a knowledgeable person. The work that we did, we had like conversations, and so that the people that we even worked with, they did not hesitate to want to bring us back, right? So I just celebrate you for that. Yeah.
Thank
So
you very
yeah, my name is Timmy. I don't want to go into. Sharif has said a lot of said stuff. Some of it's very true. Some of it, I don't know, but I don't want to go into it as much. But basically, I've been a data scientist for about close to 9 to 10 years now. I started off just I wouldn't say I knew this was the path I was going to go to, essentially, because my background initially when I was in uni, the first course I did was chemical engineering, and along the line, along the line, I was supposed to finish engineering school initially, but so I had this life event, so I had to, what, let me just dig in with the finances. So I transferred my course to economics in uni that time. And then towards the end of my last year in school, I was in charge of doing a lot of finances for a couple of organizations I was in. And because I worked with a lot of data, it made sense to start learning tools around data. And then the interesting bit was you wouldn't even know the amount of affinity you have for it until you really start working with it. And then from that point, I was fortunate to gain like an interesting internship with Accenture as an analyst. And I think it was at Accenture that I really saw what people were doing with that was 2014, 2013, 2014, I think. I can't really place my head. But I had this internship in that. And uh, I started working with writing scripts. I realized that most people were doing a lot of data things with SQL that time, MS SQL, and then SSIS, and then also writing like data jobs. The team I was with did only essential analytics alone. With you have to like understand how to work with Excel on a very good level. Then people wrote Python, people wrote Stata, what the statistics package, but rarely would you actually see people who were like scripting and writing very advanced Python scripts to actually get the kind of results. So in my team that time, I realized that it was possible to actually automate a lot of the stuff that we did daily. So I think when I actually finished my first project, which was involved writing a lot of automation scripts, simple tools that would create like that will help clients automate certain kind of reports that will help them aggregate data from different data source, do like a simple transformation and get results. And that was so interesting for me that time that it sort of picked up a light bulb in my head. And then that's where my journey started. And over the last 9 years, I've been fortunate to work at very interesting organizations, from working at Deloitte to Red Money to M Copper to working with the EA, and I'm currently now at Lloyd's Bank where I work. And so I think the bulk of what I really want to talk about today is the stuff that you will not really hear if you do like a data science course online. And the reason is because when people design programs and courses, they really want to be able to teach you the basics and the fundamentals of the things you need to know, but they expect you that as you continue your career to figure that out. Now that is good, but the challenge with that is when you now get into the nitty gritty of it, right? You work with different challenges, and so the kind of knowledge you will need, it's not just going to be the theoretical one. You will need some form of data smarts, savviness, the ability to learn and unlearn and fail, the ability to have what is called neuroplasticity. That's like you can adapt and learn different things at the same time and then incorporate a lot of knowledge. And also to have that kind of foresight of, okay, so where's the field trending to and how can I, advance myself? So the bulk of the things I'm going to be talking about is centered on that. Now, if so, without much ado, I'm going to open the floor to questions and answers. If you have any question about anything I've said, please feel free to just pop the question in the chat box, or just maybe just unmute. I will be very glad to take the question. Right. So I'm just going to pause for about 15 seconds and not expect if there's a question. If not, I'll move ahead. All right. Okay. So the first thing I think I want to talk about is what it takes, like, to climbing the ladder of being a data scientist rather, in their workplace, or if they're in academia. I think the most important thing is the DNA of who you are, as a professional. And let me explain what that means. I had a conversation with one of my mentees last week, and the question he asked, what he was trying to figure out is, uh, he wanted me to ask him questions. He wanted me to tell him about some of the things that he will need and some of the kind of materials that he will need to be able to advance in his career. And the first thing I told him was, in my journey, the first thing I had to figure out was, what side do I really want to focus on? Right. Now, the very hard part of this conversation is because over the length of years I've worked on, due to happenstance, right? I've had to like dabble into like a lot of other fields in a sense, like, but in the later years of, I mean, just as I keep growing and I'm still growing, I'm figuring out that you can actually be at your best when you understand what you're really good at and how you can specialize. And that can really give you a lot of acceleration. So I told him I usually think about it in three sides. I think about people who work in data science and in the analytics professional, the industry generally. I think about them in like three instances. I think the first bit is, I think about you as if you are involved in research and in the academia part. And then you find yourself as part of the people who understand the the, the maths part of it, the understanding of the scientific and engineering principles, and behind some of the most powerful and advanced algorithms that we use currently. And of course, that will involve you having like a deep understanding of the essentials of data science maths, like the linear algebra, like probabilities, like distributions, and all of that. Now, as a data scientist, you should understand that. But because you're so focused on the research part, you're curious, you're about to investigate, you like investigating a lot more stuff. It helps you to actually narrow that. Oh, I really want to focus on the research side of data science. Now, that's the number one part. The second part, which I said, and don't forget what I said was the first thing thinking, understanding your DNA as a data scientist, and then being able to specialize. That's what I'm talking about. The second part is the second DNA type, and please, I'm using these terms very loosely. It doesn't mean like there's a paper that has been written, or there's something that you know is widely accepted. This is just my own categorization. But then the second part is uh, data scientists who like solving like practical problems, like industry-based kind of problems, right? Like for instance, you work in the banking sector, you work in the retail sector, you work in the art sector, you work with in engineering, mining, and all that. So you're taking what the researchers have built and have translated into what are usable algorithms and products, and then you can apply that to business cases. You can get results. You can use that to present to stakeholders, and based on that, you can build products that would affect thousands of people, in the community and in the market, as you may think about it. So that's another DNA of a data scientist. And then the third one, which is really more of machine learning engineering, but again, the best machine learning engineers I know are very, very, very good when it comes to the data science understanding. Because how would you build pipelines or build infrastructure that will measure things like concept drift, like feature drift, like to able to understand how you will build pipelines that will monitor your machine learning models in production or things like that. So the third DNA is that of like a machine learning engineer stroke a data scientist, that combination. So I think the first bit is to actually figure out this is the type, or this is the area that I want to focus on, in the journey. I think it makes your journey faster. Now, this doesn't mean that you wouldn't have a grasp on the other DNA types or the other categories I've mentioned. But oftentimes, when people, for instance, when people or companies, and I've had to also do this, like I mean myself over time, when people give out job advertisements and things like that, they want to they are looking for, most times they're looking for specialties. And if you look at all those job descriptions, you see how they highlight certain skills. We need somebody who is very heavy on the productionizing or model side. We need somebody who is very vast in research. We need someone who has, or they say we need somebody who has like very good track record of creating models for specific business use cases. And I think if you're someone who has really honed in on that part of who you are, like in your DNA as a data scientist, it makes a lot of sense for you to be able to pick, oh, this is the job for me, this is not the job for me. And I think ultimately that would increase your chances of being accepted for a role or progressing further in your career. So that's number one. So the first thing I've mentioned is figuring out the type of a data scientist you are, or the area of the DNA, what your strengths are, and how you can leverage that. Before I go to the second point, I would mention that one of the key ways to actually figure that out is to ask yourself, what areas or what area do I really get the most fulfillment in doing when I'm like, if I'm a data scientist currently, or I want to, or I'm just starting out my career, or I'm mid career. For instance, if you figure out that you really enjoy the research part of it, your understanding of maths, of algebra, of probabilities, of statistics, of econometrics and the likes is very solid. And then you're so good at investigating, designing experiments, investigating results, doing RCTs and the like that. That might be a very good area you might want to start investigating it. So that means you would think about things like advancing, moving, like doing like a master's and a PhD, and then really focusing on that, and then you can become like a key person in that field. Now, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't have a grasp of the other two sides, because at certain points in your career, you might need to wear those other hats. If you're better at the software side of it, like you understand how pipelines work, you understand how things like Docker containers, you're really good, you've got a heart of using things on the cloud and all of those things, you might really want to focus on the side of, okay, you know what? I'm just going to focus on sorry, excuse me. I'm just going to focus on the side of the machine learning engineering that actually brings these models to life and all of that. So that's also very interesting. So now to my second point. I think the second point in climbing the ladder of data science is do the hard stuff. Let me say that again. Do the hard stuff. This is so important. So I find this often a lot, like even in my own experience, especially with early stage data scientists or mid-level data scientists, because so now it's just now that a lot of people are going for like advanced degrees in data science, and even when you check some of the curricula that people work with in universities these days, they are so watered down, even in the online courses and all of that. If you really want to progress, you need to solve hard problems. In fact, the higher the more difficult or the more complex the result is, the greater your understanding and your grasp of the concepts. And all throughout my career, I've actually always wanted to go for the hardest problems or the ones that I know that it will involve learning new things at different stages. And one of also the best ways to learn things is if I learn about what I'm working on, right? If I learn and I'm learning on the job, I need to deliver something and I'm learning new tools. The pace at which I take in the new technology. I remember the first time I learned about using Docker. I never used that was in 20 I was in the what then? I was like 2018 or 2017. I never used Docker before. But now they put me on a project where the client doesn't just expect us to develop models, but they also feel like we're responsible for actually putting the model into production. Now, so the way consulting teams are staffed is like so the way consulting teams are staffed, you put in like there are always like different people in different teams, people with different resources, different skills, and all of that. But it so happened that the software engineer on my team, who was supposed to actually lead the development of the software side of it, had to move to another project that we understaffed. And my manager comes and says, "Timmy, you're the senior on this team. I don't care how you get it done, but you need to get it done right." And for some reason, I mean, it was I could have just gone and be like, I really don't know how to put all these kind of things in production. I've never done it before, and none of that. But I took it upon myself as a challenge to actually learn. You know what? I'm just going to learn how to containerize stuff. I'm going to learn how to distribute those containers or work with Google Kubernetes. So it was the first time I was going to even ever write like a manifest or and then put things like containerize stuff and all that, and very interesting bit. But what he did for me in my career, which I think it was one of the most pivotal years of my life, or still part of the most pivotal years of my life, was because he showed me that if I took the pain of actually trying to solve the hardest problems, it would expand my mental capacity and my ability to deliver results. And so most times people don't want to say it. The scenarios you work with if you're already a data scientist or you're just trying an early stage data science and all of that. The scenarios you work with in the business settings are usually very, very hard. Right? They're like very hard. You have business problems that even the stakeholders don't even understand what they want to get. They have like an idea of it, they don't understand how they want to get the result of it. So they look to you as the problem solver. So if you do the hard stuff a lot, your skills will expand, you will be recognized, and that's like a very like good stepping stone for you. So that's the second thing. So the first thing I mentioned was understanding your DNA or what kind of data scientist you are. And the second thing I say is do the hard stuff. Don't shy away from doing the hard stuff. If there's a problem, when you learn something like in a tutorial, or you learn something like online, or you learn something like in a university course, you go find the dirtiest, nastiest data or use case that you can, or some of the hardest technology that you have not worked with before, and then you begin to apply on that. What that will do for you is to expand your base and help you. The moment you're able to crack and solve the problems, that knowledge stays with you and it stays with you for a long time. So then the third thing I want to mention is this, and is you can't stop learning, right? You're always the thing that would put you at the edge, that would keep you going. And learning has to be a ritual. Learning for you as a data scientist has to be almost a daily thing. There has to be like there has to be like there has to be this continual knowing that it's just like somebody who plays football. I, I usually use this analogy a lot. When you find I watch basketball a lot, and one of my favorite basketballer is a guy named Steph Curry. Is regarded as one of the great or the greatest shooter like basketball in in basketball history. But I realized you're already the greatest shooter ever. But in their training, they have things like shoot arounds where he has to put up 1,000 shots every week. Now, if you're already the greatest basketball player, the shooter of the basketball in history, why do you still need to put up 1,000 shots every week? And it was always very curious. I'm not saying you shouldn't have practiced, but why do you still need that intensity of practice? And one day, like a light bulb moment, it just went off in my head that this is how these guys maintain their edge. And the thing that usually makes a difference in our world that helps you climb faster and helps you climb, as rapid as possible is just developing that edge. And the way to develop that edge is you need to continually and constantly practice. And by practice, that means that you have a ritual for practicing stuff. You have dedicated times. You invest a lot in resources. Over the weekend, I just said I'm just going to invest close to about £300 in just buying some new textbooks. Now, it's not because I'm doing a new project at work or something, but because I actually we're talking about very interesting things. Not even Jenny and I actually, right? Some interesting things at work that what the new frontier of what the new for thank you for that. Right? Yeah, I agree with you, but I agree with you a lot. He's the greatest shooter God has made. 100% do. All right, so um you can't you have to think about it like that because your edge is what makes you different. So even if you've got a PhD, you've got two PhDs, you're like a leader, like you're the lead or you're the senior manager or whatever, you always need to maintain your edge for you. And the other part of it is that data science, the field of AI generally, and I know we've all noticed this in the last 2 years, has taken on like another leap, like entirely different of how the world looked like 5 years ago. It tells you like you're working in a field that is so expanding that if you're not maintaining your edge, there's a higher risk of redundancy than reward in a sense. So that's the third thing. So the first thing I've said is number one is understanding your DNA as a data scientist. Meaning, am I a good researcher? Do I understand business and industry use cases? Or am I the kind of guy who just wants to build the infrastructure that all these things will run on? The second thing I mentioned is the fact that you need to do the hard stuff, right? When you learn something new, when you're in a learning environment, you've gotten stuff and all that, the best way to actually translate that and to become a master of it is find some of the hardest problems around it. Devote your time to solving it. Even if you don't solve it, but you will learn stuff along the way that will actually you will learn stuff along the way that would actually push you like to another level, and that's also really 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 important. And the third thing I've said is that you have to keep your edge by doing continuous learning. The fourth thing is uh I'm going to break this fourth thing into like two key things, right? It has to do with dealing with stakeholders at work or dealing with people because just like any business, as a data scientist, you're serving a business, right? You're serving a client, you're serving somebody. Somebody is going to use your product. And if you think about it, you have to start by thinking about that. Right? It's not just, oh, well, I just have a job and I'm going to do my tasks and tick all my tasks on Jira or GitHub or whatever it is that you use. It's important to have that at the back of your mind that if you think about it in a business way, right? And then you can think about yourself as a business. You can think about yourself as the practitioner. It makes a lot of sense to you to think about who your clients or who the end users of your product are. I like this very brilliant book by Peter Thiel, the guy that started, no, sorry, Reid Hoffman, one of the guys that started LinkedIn, the startup of you. And he was talking about if you think about your career as a startup, you will make a lot of difference in your life because you will think about the people that you're serving, right? Even on the job. And I'm not even just saying that. I'm not even saying just about I'm not even saying just about the work alone or your boss or something. I'm talking about the people that you're serving. And so that's very important. You have to think of the people that you're serving, right? Think of yourself as a startup and think of the people that you're serving as your client or your customers. Now, brings me to the first point I want to make is I have found out that, and this is while working across different resources and different use cases and different companies and working with different people. When I go into a room and people are talking about a data science problem, now this is just a number to describe. I don't want to use numbers or figures anyhow, right? I mean, being the statistician, I have to be fully. But what I'm trying to say is this: oftentimes, I really realize that people struggle on how to actually define problems, right? For instance, let's say a business that wants to increases customer engagement via their ads, right? Or they tell you that we want to increase our page views. So the problem with how they have defined that problem is what they think they need is to increase their page views, right? But the problem is that that is just the overt problem. Overt, like overt, like the obvious problem. But the problem they really, really want to solve, which most times they don't define, is that they need to increase customer engagement. Because the reason of actually, if people build your page and they don't do anything, it hasn't done anything for you might have a metric that you can show business that, oh, page view has increased. But anybody that works in the ad business knows that your page view doesn't count for things if people are not engaging with the product, because that's ultimately what will turn out revenue and then obviously increase profitability. But the point is, when people have those kind of conversations, they really, really, really don't frame problems very well. So I took a course in framing problems, like one MITx course like that, and all of that. And was one of the courses I think really challenged my thinking about how I thought about data science problems. Data scientists, because you work in a field where you are doing a lot of technical stuff, sometimes that people assume that they are smarter than everybody. But what I find out is that if you speak with the stakeholders and the subject matter experts on the problem you're trying to solve, to solve, you find out that you actually become even smarter by listening to them. Now, oftentimes they might not be the best at defining the problems or what they want to see. But the first thing as a data scientist, the thing that helps you climb, that differentiates you, is the fact that you can frame and understand, you can frame and put problems the best way possible in a way that nobody's confused. Everybody understands what's going on, and you can say it like in the best way possible. I had an experience of this when I worked at Red Money. We were going to build an affordability loan. I was the lead. I wasn't the lead data scientist at that time. I can't remember. Yeah, but I was. Yeah, we were going to build something on affordability. And every time I entered the meeting, we had guys from marketing there, we had guys from portfolio there, we had guys from risk, we had guys from lending and policy. Think about the people in the room and then data scientists and engineers. And everybody kept talking about the problem. Oh, we need to do this, we have to consider this. And it was just, how when you put like too many smart people in the room and nobody understands each other. And I think what really made a difference for me that it was, I was like, look, everybody is saying different things, saying what they want to do, but nobody has been really able to put the problem in a way that we can all go and understand that no matter how sophisticated the algorithm we want to use, or the process, or the way we prepare the data, or how we monitor the model, can we all define a problem in the most simple terms? Right. And I think it was something that won. I ended up getting promoted twice that year, if I remember. One of the things that kind of won like respect for me, even up with the deputy CEO, was the fact that everybody just felt like nobody was knew what they were doing. But I was able to come in and say, listen, this is how you define data science problems. You can forget all this other noise. You need to be able to define this and then know that this is the outcome, and this is how we're going to measure the outcome, and this is how we know that this is how we know that this particular metric and outcome we have chosen actually solve the problems that we all have in hand. That's the first part. Then the second part, because you're working with stakeholders, I'm just about rounding up my talk now. Because you're working with stakeholders and working with people, is oftentimes data scientists focus on gaining a lot of technical skills at the expense of getting and understanding the soft side or the soft skills or how to relate with the SMEs or people that you're working with and how to present your results and how to be able to tell stories to get them to a point where they will buy into your idea. And of all the things that I've said, right, if I'm supposed to attach weightings to everything I've said, I would think this is the weightiest part of the things I've said today. You need to learn how to sell your product. You need all the soft skills that involves, first of all, how to communicate, how to hold conversations, how to communicate your technical results, how to put them into stories, so that the person who is listening to you, who most times is the person you have built the product for, or the person you're trying to convince to hire you, or somebody you're trying to convince to make some certain decisions on the model that you have built. So I go into all those meetings all the time, and in fact, when I was like at the head of the department and all that, and somebody has to go and present results, and now you assume that the person that is going to use a data scientist, but I don't want to assume that even though they are a data scientist, or even though there are people in the room who are technical, I want to assume that everybody needs to understand stuff at the level of a 3 year old. So if I come and I'm having all kinds of charts and plots and metrics and scores and all of that, you see that the people in the room, because, and then again, classical ML is so black boxy that it takes extra effort to actually for people to actually get and trust what is going on in there. So the shortcoming of a number of data scientists is because they don't integrate these essentials into their daily work. So it's so important to focus on learning that part and then building all the skills together. Now, let me just sort of tie up everything I've said together again, and so I can ensure that everybody understands. And then I'll just leave the rest for hand over to Sharif for questions and all that. The first thing I said from my own understanding over the years is one is you have to understand your DNA as a data scientist, right? um, you have to understand where you think you can excel the most and how fast you can go there. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot be relevant in the other areas. I'm even saying that if you have like a lot of skills or happens to be in the other areas, it even makes it better. But focusing on stretching yourself can give you like an edge where you are. So and I broke that down into like three instances. One is if you like focusing on the research side of AI and then research side of AI, research side of machine learning. I think the second bit is focusing on the if you focus on the practical side, that's working in the industry, working in the different sectors and all that, taking business problems, applying data science techniques, and understanding and generating results that can be turned into a product and can serve a lot of customers. And the third side of it is if you really want to focus on the engineering side of it, where you actually build the infrastructures, you will need a lot of understanding of data science actually, but also you put the kind of infrastructures that all this, serve. The second thing I mentioned was if you want to climb the ladder of data science pretty fast, you want to excel, you want to learn to solve hard problems, right? Just the working with just the tutorials and working on the surface and just doing just enough won't cut it. Solving hard problems because helps you like master the skill, help you get into rooms where you listen to, gives you an idea of what you can even build on that. And that's the second thing. I think the third thing I mentioned is, and that's what I was talking about Steph being as the greatest shooter that God has ever made and all of that is to maintain your edge, you have to continuously learn. And the best way to learn is to have a learning ritual, right? I'm going to put in X amount of hours every week. And it's not just in putting X amount of hours. I have targeted areas of where I want to learn. I am learning the most relevant things. I have connected to like a mentor. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that a mentor, a coach, or something like that. And the one I mentioned was think about your business yourself as a data scientist as a startup, right? How would you serve your clients? How would you serve your customers? It means that you need to be able to be the person who will help them understand and define the problems the best. And also you need to develop the soft side of actually dealing with the clients as the customers who are people that are building stuff for, right? And that involves understanding communication, how it's important, understanding presentations, understanding how to tell stories. Steve Jobs always said that the world belongs to storytellers, so that's important. And then also you know how to stitch all that together and then and then making things as simple as possible. All right, so yeah, so those are like the 4 points. I don't want to bore you with too many other details, but those are the key 4 points I think have been very essential in my own journey, and I think will continue to be essential, going forward. So thank you very much, guys. I'm done talking. I think yeah, good time. I'll leave the floor for questions. Sharif, if you want to take it up from here, I really don't mind. Thanks so much.
So thank you, Timmy, for that wonderful talk and telling us what is quite so many things that are important in the life of a data scientist and things that people need to be aware of. Those people that are starting, those people that are in their mid career and even senior data scientists, lead data scientists, things that we need to continue doing so that we'll stay ahead and we'll keep abreast with the technology. So everything that you said, it resonates with every one of us. So and everything is quite things that people need to be aware of that they need to do, that we need to do as well. So it's not just about technical things, soft skills like you mentioned is very germane as well. So that because people will be working with different people from different department or different field. You work with product owner, you work with non-technical people, managers. You work with technical delivery managers. You work with DevOps engineer. You work with software engineer, and not all of them will understand what you're doing. So you need to break things down so that they understand. And and the first thing, like you mentioned, is just to understand the requirements, what you need to do before you get your hand dirty, because, so that you won't bite your finger at the end of the day. So, one of those key things as software developer, or even data scientist, is to make sure that you understand the requirement very well and you know what you want to achieve. So, I will now open the floor for anybody that wants to add comments. We have some mentors here as well. Dr. Kabira Kade is here. So, I don't know whether he wants to add something or if somebody else will want to add some comment or they have questions. Okay, over to you, Dr. Kabir.
Hello, thank you. Uh, it's not Dr. Temi. Our PhD is on your way. Yeah, my name is Kabir. Really nice talk. Thank you very much. We appreciate this. Um, I guess I really have. I mean, I don't have much to add. I wanted to ask you, as a data science manager, maybe you could advise people, and myself also included, about. I presume you probably would have done some hiring decisions. And I know that in the interview process, one get to speak with the manager at some point, or manager makes decision at some point. So what are those things that you would look at a candidate when you are making that decision, when you're having that conversation? What are those key points that people need to look out for, and how should they prepare for that particular talk or stage?
Thank you, Dr. Carver. That's a really brilliant question. Uh, I think when I interview people, the first thing on my mind is I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for obviously before you even get to the stage where I have to. If I'm like the first level hiring manager, I would have talked to you about the technical skills. You would have had an opportunity to do like a technical assessment, and then we can see how that will work. But when I'm like at the second stage and I really want to get to drill dive into your personality, the first thing I want to find out is when you're when how can you prove to me that you have done something, right? You have worked on a, it doesn't have to be the hardest challenge in the world, but you have done something on that project, you have learned something, you have gotten a certain kind of result. It doesn't again, it doesn't have to be the craziest results in the world, but you can communicate an experience of yours where you have solved something and I've listened to how you're going about solving it. You have presented the results, right? And then based on that, I can understand, I can, it is easy enough for me to transfer that same knowledge into another scenario if we were working into my team. So the first thing I really want to look at is how much can you communicate uh, your experience in solving a specific problem? How much can you quantify the outcome? How much can you discuss with me about the process? And in that, I can infer, I mean, overall from how you'll be able to do on the project you're working with my team, right? And I think in that, when people, so you know which ones are like yeah, I did a project, but I'm just throwing numbers around. But when I listen to someone, I can really hear that they actually worked on this project. They put their mind on this project and they were able to get this kind of results and it fits into what we are going to need. That's the first bit. And I think the second thing I look for is how well you are able to understand questions or problems and how well you're able to sort of like choose the best approach for it. And the reason for that is because you're going to work with different problems. You're going to work with different challenges and all that. I need to be able to know that, and this is also again this is based on the level that you are being interviewed for. For instance, the way I would expect somebody who is being interviewed for a senior data science position is different from the way I would expect somebody who is being interviewed for a mid-level or an early stage. But I think the quality of their answers, the way they're able to articulate the breadth of their experience, the way they're able to discuss actual outcomes. I don't want to hear things like 15%, so this caused 15% increase or two times increase. I'm not there to verify the number, so I wouldn't really know. I mean, and I'm not saying that, of course, it's not true. But I want to understand more of the process that went into doing that and what are some of the results that you got. You don't even need to have to put like a figure on it, like most recruiters say, put it in your CV and all that. And even if you do, maybe that will get you past the first stage. But I really want to interrogate that process. So usually I look for those two things. How well you can articulate your breadth of experience to me, the process, and also your understanding of approaches and problems. Those are like very two important things. I mean, amongst a couple of other things.
Okay, thank you so much, uh, the organizer. Thank you, the speaker as well. Now, my question is for someone who is at entry level, so to speak, how and the person is like trying to, go into employment as a data scientist. Okay, how can you, fit in to the system. Into a system that you don't have an idea. You don't have, an understanding of how it will be. All you have done is just training. So, what are the expectations? What are those things that the individual needs to do? To properly fit in without too much struggle.
Right.
And
Right. Okay. Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So, do you mean that because there are two scenarios? Do you mean that you just trained as a data scientist and it's your first experience you are in the sector, or maybe you have like a training in one sector and you're moving to another sector? Which one is it? So I will be able to answer it.
The second one, please.
Okay, like you were in one sector before,
Yeah.
now you moved into an entirely different sector.
Yes.
That's interesting. So the way to think about it is this: is first thing is if you had background of one sector before, now you've learned the essentials of data science. The very interesting part about data science is, now I will put a balance to this. But the interesting part of data science is it has almost, let me say, an agnostic way of solving problems. In the sense, essential tools and the things you need, you probably already have it. Now, so the gap you want to fill is understanding how you can apply that to a certain field. And usually, one way to do that is, in every field, there are subject matter experts. Now, subject matter experts could be people, subject matter experts could be the videos you watch on YouTube, subject matter experts could be books. It could be people who understand the subject. And I think that one way, the first way of it is to find a very good subject matter expert. Preferably for me, I would find somebody who is like a senior or somebody who is higher in that field, and I would develop some form of relationship where either they become like a mentor, or I just have regular sessions with them where I get to bombard them with a lot of questions. Second form of SMS is to get as much resources you need. Now again, you're not really getting resources for data science. I mean, that goes without saying, but you're trying to get resources of how you connect data science to that particular field. For instance, I had a project where I had to work on something along the lines of gaming. I never built, I mean, I played games a lot, but I never built anything. I never even knew that I was going to build anything. It was something along object recognition for the gaming industry before. It was so new to me, but again, it was a client that needed it and it had to be done. So I think what I did was to find one of my friends who lives in Norway and done some things in gaming, and I started asking him about this and all of that. Like I basically had to ask him questions, and of course you go on YouTube. Like, I think I watched God bless our Indian brothers. They have a lot of videos for stuff like that, you know. So, and I think I watched one Indian guy's video, which actually was the key to doing the project I did. So again, it's all about leveraging subject matter experts and asking questions. And I think the other thing is some of this other stuff too. The moment you get into solving the problem, maybe at a new job or at a new field and all of that, when you get into solving the problems and you start like applying and all of that and reading they sort of come together in your head. And before you know it, you already have like a good grasp of it. So I would say leverage subject matter experts, start with the problem, and then learn why you're doing it.
You only have £2,000 for like the activity week.
I was able to answer that. I mean,
from 30 people.
So, do we have further question from?
Yeah, just for another simple question. I can see probably you didn't start out as a manager.
Yeah.
So, share maybe briefly what decision led to that? Maybe whether that's a good path for me to follow, or what are the advantages?
All right. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. So I'm going to answer that in two folds. So the interesting thing about me right now is, even though I'm a manager, I still do a lot of independent contributions. That's technical stuff. In fact, 50% of my work currently is technical, like writing like actual code and building stuff. Right. So I'm very glad that it's that case, because I wouldn't want to like diverse to the other side of it entirely. But that being said, I also, I think I've really been very good at or very adept at managing people. And the side of my work that has to do with managing a team means that you bring your knowledge into managing the people and then managing the project very well. If some organizations, if you're a data science manager in some organizations, mostly you're just managing and leading the team and then doing the business side of it, and then of course contributing. Just you're leading stuff. You're probably reviewing results, and things like that. Some organizations, they expect you to lead the project, the technical side, and then can lead the people. So I'm in the later one, that's leading project. So it depends on which particular type they go with. But I mean, to me, if I'm ever given an option, I don't want to be to one extreme side alone. I want to be like I'm managing people and I'm also doing work. So I think it's been very rewarding actually. It's very rewarding. It's just that if you're managing people alone, you have to actually focus more on the business and the people side, right? And then I do some extra work to keep your technical results.
Are you happy that your papa is?
All right, thank you.
Anyone would just do that because she's happy that her papa is.
So maybe one last question. I don't know if somebody has any question. So if nobody has any question, we are very grateful for Temi for coming to give us that lovely talk and also sharing his words of experience. Like I mentioned, it's somebody has worked in different company, and his experience has shown when he was speaking and talking confidently about how you can do this and how you can do that and what it is you do. So we really appreciate you, and it's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much. I'm very humbled. Thank you for having me around. Thank you for listening. Thank you for asking questions. And weekend ahead of you.